I would be with him like the night before. And then when we would work together in the office, be like, hello, good morning. And everybody around us was clueless as to what was going on.
Right now, Amazon is offering some amazing extra perks that come with a job offer. If you start a warehouse job, you can get a $1,000 sign-on bonus. That means you start earning a paycheck right away, plus you get extra cash to use before the holidays. Applying is so easy, you don't even need an interview. It's never been so rewarding to start an hourly job that's close to home. So what are you waiting for? To join the team today, visit Amazon.com/sign-on bonus. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer.
Welcome to the Secret Life Podcast. Tell me your secret. I'll tell you mine. Sometimes you have to go through the darkness to reach the light. That's what I did. After 12 years of recovery in sex and love addiction, I finally found my soulmate, myself. Please join me in my novel, Secret Life of a Hollywood Sex and Love Addict, a 4-time bestseller on Amazon. It's a brutal, honest, raw, gnarly ride, but hilarious at the same time. Check it out now on Amazon. Welcome to Secret Life Podcast. I'm Brianne Davis-Gant. Today I'm pulling back the curtains of all kinds of human secrets. We'll hear about what people are hiding from themselves or others. You know those deep, dark secrets we probably want to go to our grave with? Are those lighter, funnier secrets that are just plain embarrassing? Really the how, what, when, where, and why of it all. Today my guest is Nico. Now Nico, I have a question for you. Dun, dun, dun. What is your secret?
I, about 12 years ago, started having an affair with my boss.
Ooh, I had no idea, people. I had no idea what she was going to say. Okay, so that was a couple years ago. Can you tell me how it started?
Yes. Just to give you an idea, I was pretty naive, even for my age at that time. You would think I'd be more experienced, but I was pretty naive. He was, this big, successful man, very good looking, very charming. He actually started pursuing me.
How much older is he than you?
He was 12 years older than me.
Okay. I was just wondering. So take us back to that first moment when it started to get a little complicated.
I remember I was getting ready to go to my cousin's wedding. And I actually had a boyfriend at the time.
Ooh, and juicier.
Yes. And he just was constantly just started texting me a lot. Like, what are you doing today? How are you doing? And like, I would get little Post-it notes on my desk, like, hi. And like, I was like, this is strange. I was like, okay. And I was like, this is a little, interesting. I was very attracted to him, I'll be honest. And I felt this kind of guilt with that. But it just kind of started, it was almost like we had this tension building up. And it went on for about, I would say, 4 months before we actually did anything physical. It just got to a point where it was like, it was just, I don't know, it just kind of happened.
Wait, you're skimming over some details. Like these kind of secrets always start innocently. So he just started texting you. Is that normal for a boss to be texting an employee? I don't work in that environment, so I have no idea.
No, it's not. And, just so you know, there was just something about him that I was very drawn to and attracted to, and obviously him towards me. And I remember one day, and people do this a lot, they'll go to lunch with their colleagues. Yeah. But I didn't realize when I look back, he was I didn't realize it at the time, but he was really asking me a lot of questions. Like, he was really interested in me. There was something about that I had not been with a lot of guys before that intrigued him. I could tell. He was like shocked. He's like, so you haven't had a lot of boyfriends before? And just very interested in my personal life. And I was like, okay. And I didn't really realize that was, what he was gearing up to, because he was interested in me. I thought he was just making conversation.
So you're sitting there at lunch and he's asking you all these personal questions. Did you feel like a rush or anything with that attention? Because if you're attracted to a man and he's asking you all those questions, kind of that feeling would start happening.
Yes. Yeah. And I remember something changed where it went from just kind of being friendly to where it was like he was flirting with me, like hardcore flirting. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, I've never, had somebody give me this much attention. And what I wanted to talk about too is, before this affair even happened, I never watched Sex in the City or like the Twilight series or 50 Shades of Grey.
What?
No.
How could you never watch Sex in the City, girl?
I know. I started watching it actually like around that time, a little after.
Uh-huh.
And I would almost say I started referring to him as kind of like a Mr. Big character.
Oh.
So after I started like realizing, I was like, wow, women would die if they knew I was in this situation. I didn't realize kind of how hot and steamy it was until I started realizing what the world out there portrays as, kind of going down that road. But it got to a point where, we finally met up and got together, and it was pretty, it was hot and continued on. We would go to dinners and do things like that. And he would somehow find time to spend with me on the weekends and after work. So it was, it kept progressing more and more.
Okay, but back up. You just sped through a bunch of information that probably the listeners want to hear. So when was the first time? What happened? Where were you?
Well, we met at a hotel, actually.
Oh, well, there you go.
And that's when, it's funny because I'll watch movies or watch series or things. And I'm like, oh my God, that was so me right there. Like me, it's so cliche, but like we did because we wanted to be discreet and it was the most safe thing to do.
Was it a nice hotel or was it a shabby
hotel? Okay. No, it was very nice. It was always very nice and very, clean and classy and all that.
So you knew when you were going to that hotel, like you knew what you were going for, right?
Yes. It just got to a point where it built up between us that I can't explain it, but it's so funny because when I look back now, sometimes I kind of wish I wouldn't have gone that step. And it might have changed a lot of things for me progressing forward. But so it was a lot of, and then he started coming to my place and then we would meet up and stuff like that. And there was just something about what I think was adrenaline and was kind of in a way so interesting is it was like I would be with him like the night before. And then when we would work together in the office, we would totally just act like, oh, hi, how are you? Like,
ooh, that's a juicy secret. That is a good, yeah.
So I would every morning just be like, hello, good morning. And everybody around us was clueless as to what was going on.
Those are my favorite type of secrets. And I've said this before, like I loved having secrets, but those are what kills us. And how long did this, this being together at night and then seeing each other at the office, how long was this affair?
It went on for about 4 years.
Whoa. Did you just say weekends too? I said,
yes.
Okay. So you spent a lot of time for 4 years.
Yes. Almost 4 years. We had a point where we broke up for a while and then kind of tried to reconcile things again. But here's another little part to it that makes this even more interesting. Mm-hmm. After a year went by, he started being a little more, wanted to introduce some things into our relationship. Started wanting to have threesomes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So how'd that go?
That at first, I was happy to do it. I grew up with very, healthy upbringing, healthy childhood, no, history of anything weird. So I was like open to it. I was like, this could be fun. This sounds interesting to me. Mm-hmm. And so we would have some, we had a couple threesomes. All right.
With females or males?
Males.
Oh, this is juicy. Okay. Yeah. Keep going.
So, and he would also do things like he liked to do role playing with me. So we would do role playing, and he also
like
one time he pretended like he was the like principal or professor and I was the student. We were like meeting at the bar, and then another time I don't know, different things. But he started introducing all these things into my life that to me, because I feel like such a healthy relationship, I would say, like with sex itself. Like I love sex and I don't think there's anything wrong or dirty with it. I was open to doing all these things.
Right.
But it got to a point where it was almost like I felt like he was obsessed with it. And that's when I was like, okay, are you still just interested in me, or are you wanting to, do all these, as they say, like kinkery?
Yeah.
And, he liked me to call him master. He actually had me sign this contract. Then when I saw 50 Shades of Grey, I almost flipped a lid. I was like, did he read this book?
Probably.
I felt like I was just living the life of this Anastasia in 50 Shades of Grey. And this was after our relationship was done. And I watched this and I was like, okay, what year did this book come out? I was feeling so many parallels to it. But
it's almost like what you're telling me, he was reacting movies or situations in movies with you.
No, possibly. And, I really, what I want to point out is, there was, surprisingly, it brought us closer together doing all of this stuff. Our intimacy was just flying off the charts.
Right.
And the trust that goes with all of that is huge.
Huge.
And so when I started, he told me he loved me. He did a lot of nice things for me. And it got to a point, it was this amazing, romantic, wild, very passionate relationship. And the attention I got from him was off the charts too. It was like constant, checking in on me. But not in like a bad way. But I will say that later on down the road, once I wasn't in this relationship anymore, I almost thought, are these guys interested in me? Like, I was like, I'm not getting near as much attention as I got with him. And it's almost like I don't know how to say it, but he kind of worked my thinking and how I'm expecting a relationship to be. So it took me a while to realize that, that was such a unique situation and relationship. That's not how my relationships are going to be going forward. And I learned a lot from it. And I actually, so it was very hot and steamy and romantic and very passionate. Mm-hmm. And I did, it was great for a while. And then it started getting really hard. So it was it started being very painful for me.
Yeah. I mean, that would have to be painful if you're that intimate with someone, exploring all these ways of your sexuality with someone, but then they're never really yours.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That has to be very painful.
Yes.
So what did you find yourself towards the end? How was that situation? I made a decision to leave my place of work with him. And when I knew that, I never asked him or wanted him to, I never touched on the subject of what he wanted to do with his marriage, but he did tell me he loved me. Okay. And so I really thought that at some point he might, I had a hard time understanding what he was going to do with that whole situation. And I had an enormous amount of guilt and shame with that too, that started surfacing within myself. And I just kind of started to realize, even though I'm loving all of this, this is not who I am and how I was raised. And, it was just so, like, people who really know me would be shocked. I thought, like, if they ever knew that I was in an affair situation, first of all, and then to tell people that was going on too, this other side of it. It took a lot of healing and working through myself
with things after this relationship was over.
Yeah.
And so I guess but I kept on to that so long. I never shared with anybody about my relationship with him while it was going on. So it was this huge secret within myself that I never talked to anybody about.
Right.
So anytime he upset me or I wanted to share something really exciting with him, I couldn't tell anybody. And so, you like hear your friends gushing about their men, or, oh, I'm so upset this happened. What do you think I should do? Just for support. Like I couldn't do any of that during the whole relationship.
Did they ever even know you were seeing somebody?
I think maybe I confided in a few people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there were also some times where maybe when I had a little too much wine, I might have talked about it. Mm-hmm. So, it was just, and I guess I would just tell people, like, if I could tell anybody, like, don't ever make a decision to be in an affair, because it was so painful when it was over. And I also think but I will say that experimenting and doing things sexually with your partner is okay. And that's why I tell myself that if, I would do that if I'm married, but I would never do that with just somebody I'm dating again, because you really want to make sure that, you have that secureness going on, that you can really trust them. And when you have trust, then you're open to things, and, it just makes it all around better.
I agree. I mean, trust is everything in a relationship, and it's hard to completely have that if he's living a double life. And it sounds like you were living a double life, because if most of the people in your life didn't know about it, you actually were splitting yourself in half.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Because I was very envious of all my other friends going around and just having these, they were able to be open about all their relationships and they had things going on with them.
Mm-hmm.
And here I was not able to share anything. So I was very envious of some certain situations.
Were you envious of his wife?
No, I think that somehow he removed that from, I don't know how he did it.
How is that? How do you go 4 years without talking about that? You weren't curious, like what their relationship was like?
I don't know what went on with them to make him lead into this situation, but I will say that he repeated after me the same situation.
I was just about to ask you that. You just mind read me. But I was thinking, was he flirting with other women at the office, or he went and did it again?
After I was gone, yes.
How did you hear about that?
It's a small world kind of in the community, the profession that I'm in. He got a divorce and left his wife for the girl that was working at the farm. Yes.
How did that make you feel?
Oh my gosh, I was so upset. I'll be honest. Even though I was over him and I'd moved on from it, and I was, in other relationships, started dating guys, and trying to move on. It was still upsetting because I was like, well, why wouldn't he marry me? And I was like, but to be really honest, I think that he was just at a point where he was scared to death of what would happen with his family. I think he was scared of what would happen, and I don't blame him. But I think he just wasn't ready to take that step. I really, truly believe in that thing of timing. So I decided that I had to move on from this situation, which I think I actually made the right decision.
I 100% believe you made the right decision. And I don't believe in the thing where cheaters always cheat. I actually don't believe that, because I've seen a bunch of men and myself change. But if he's not in therapy, if he's not working on himself, the likelihood of him doing that with his new wife is very, very high, because that is a behavior that you carry on through your life. So I think you made the right decision. I'm just thinking, if I was you, that anger, would come up. if I heard he was now and how soon did he get with her after you guys ended your affair?
I heard he started seeing her when he was seeing me. When we were ending it. Yep.
See, girl,
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, you dodged a bullet. You don't want to marry a man or a woman man doesn't want to marry a woman that keeps doing that.
And it was a lot of pain. It was very painful. And he was, to me, kind of like my best friend too. We would do things like go to yoga together and stuff like that. So.
Did you look back at the relationship and feel like he lied to you at any time?
Yes. I found out a lot of lies came out after we were over. I actually had a girl come forward and tell me a lot of things about other women he had been involved with that I had no idea about, but I actually questioned him about before, and he told me no and lied to my face.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Like other women he's had affairs with are indiscretions.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you got out just the right time because there's no good. I mean, he's going to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like he needs that secret life to even function, it sounds like.
Yeah. And as for me, I don't think I'm any kind of saint in all this,
Oh, of course not.
Like, no. Yeah. And I feel like people would hear about it or rumors started, and I would get comments sometimes and different things. And I was like, okay, that's kind of a strange comment, and I was
like what? Can you tell us the comment?
Something about, like people started being concerned about me being in work environments around married men. And I was like, okay, well, and this is one thing that I would like to say to people in the world is just because I made one mistake and I was in a situation like that, I would, I've paid the price enough on my own, how hard I've been on myself, let alone I don't need other people, and I know people want to, sometimes they like to be mean or catty, but it's, it's like a juicy kind of secret. So if people found out about it and they kind of have a mean bone in their body, I could see why people would love to run with this,
Listen, we all do things we're not proud of, and that's in human nature. So I agree. Like, just because you make one mistake in your life, that doesn't define who you are.
Yes. Yeah. And it was, it started 12 years ago. So it's been about, what is it? 8-9 years since this ended. Yeah. And, it took me a long time to even open up to people. And I told a group of my girlfriends, and they were like, oh, all of us have done it. And I was like, okay, because I had this whole thing where I was like, I'm the only one in the world who is ever this bad, and just feeling, and I think that was more of my young naiveness too. Now that I'm, older and I've gone through things and I've thought about all this and, gone through therapy, I realized like, there's other people out there too who've gone through these situations. And,
I mean, they have a website for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never been on it. I just know about it. They have like, if you're married, you go on so you can have affairs behind your marriage.
I heard about that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So I did want to ask this group of friends, how many girlfriends are you saying they all said they did the same thing? How many of them?
There was like 3 or 4 of them like, oh, we've all done it.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. So they're like, if that's the worst thing you've done. And I'm like, well, that's how I feel. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty, but, it's just that when you work in a more conservative profession, and I don't really want to say what I do right now.
No, you do not have to say what you do.
I have felt like some persecution, like that's kind of unspoken, that I feel like people know. I sense it. I can't, and maybe that's my, worrying about people knowing, but I've gotten to a point now where it's like, I really don't care if people know. If they know, they know. I'm not going to go around blast it. But I think that's why I wanted to come on here and talk with you, because if there's other, people going through this right now, like, don't be so alone. Feel open to talk to people about it. Because I think that's one mistake I did, was keeping the secret for so long. And I think that harmed me more than helped me.
Of course it did. I mean, you just answered my next question. Of course it harmed you. Like I said, you were living a double life, and so was this other man. And then at the end, you were left heartbroken.
Mm-hmm. Very, very heartbroken.
And also you were cheated on, it sounded like.
Yes.
I mean, he was a busy guy.
Yeah.
Well, I did also want to ask you a question about my last thing that I really want to know is, did you ever meet his wife?
Yes.
Do you think she knew?
I don't know. I really don't know, to be honest. And I met her before it started, actually. It was a Christmas function.
Oh my God, that's such a movie. Oh my God, I love it.
And, and to make it worse too, and this is not to say anything bad about, the church community, but I grew up pretty religious church girl,
Mm-hmm.
and I never kissed a guy until I was out of high school. So the fact that I got involved in this whole thing was probably going to be pretty shocking to some people if they ever heard about it, to be honest. But I also, just who I am, mm-hmm. I'm not the typical, I don't like to judge people either. I think people, as far as the whole experimenting thing, role playing, doing threesomes, all that, I think that is fine in the right context. I think it's okay. And, we have to be, I think that's human nature. And I think that to repress things is not healthy either sexually. I think that it's okay to explore. And honestly, I don't have any desire to ever go down that route again with a man. But if I was married to a man, I probably wouldn't want to either, unless he really wanted to. I don't know. But then I feel like there's different avenues that people like to go, like people BDS and all that kind of stuff,
Well, I think the one benefit I think of this situation is you learned a lot about yourself. You learned a lot about what you want in a relationship and what you don't want. And you also got to experiment with your sexuality and see. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes in the worst things we go through or do, we learn a lot about who we actually are.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So if anyone's listening right now and they're in a situation where it's probably not appropriate, it's an affair, or they're the mistress, what would be your advice for them since you've been through it and it's been 12 years?
I would say really pay attention and listen to their intentions. Mm-hmm. Don't let them manipulate you. Really just know, do they truly love you, or are they saying they love you so they can get what they want? And just, that intimacy that you have with that person, it probably is real, but maybe if you don't feel comfortable opening up to somebody, because you're so ashamed of being in that situation, then talk to a therapist. Mm-hmm. Or, that's what I would suggest. But I would also say, if you're feeling more pain than pleasure, then get out of it.
Get out of it. Run.
Yes. Run. Get out. Don't. And I would say if anybody's in a situation where they're about to get in a situation with an extramarital affair, I would say run. Don't do it. It's not worth it.
I would agree with you because I have done it in the past. I mean, I have been the cheater, and that lust that overtakes you always goes away. It's not enough to sustain a lasting relationship, I believe, in my experience. So run.
Yes. Don't do it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your secret with us.
You're welcome.
And if you want to be on the show, please email me at secretlifepodcast@icloud.com. Until next time. Thanks again for listening to the show. Please subscribe, rate, share, or send me a note at secretlifepodcast.com. And if you like to check out my book, head over to secretlifenovel.com or Amazon to pick up a copy for yourself or someone you love. Thanks again. See you soon.